welcome to the historic Mansion House here in the heart of Dublin. Tonight's guest was propelled from the Glaswegian tenements to pop stardom in the mid-1960s. She's been part of the musical landscape, not just in Europe, but right across the globe for over 5 decades. She has an incredible knack for reinventing herself and has just released her 21st album. Now that's something to shout about. Will you welcome, please, Lulu. Lulu.
Thank you.
It's great to see you again. And we talked about all that reinvention and so on. The latest reinvention, if you can call it that, is a new album, Making Life Rhyme.
I can never reinvent the length of my legs, though. They're so short. I have to have a cushion at the back here just to make me sit upright. Otherwise, I'll be like that.
That's okay, too.
Yeah, Making Life Rhyme, a brand new album of self-penned songs, which is a first for me.
Now, you were born Marie MacDonald McLaughlin Laurie.
That's right.
In Lennoxtown in Dumbartonshire.
Yeah, but I never went back there. I never saw it. I don't remember it.
You don't remember that?
Because I lived in Glasgow, you know, which
well,
is just...
let's go back and try to remember how the artist who became known as Lulu to one and all was invented. Marie MacDonald McLaughlin Laurie, the daughter of a Glasgow butcher, first performed in public at the age of 4, and she hasn't stopped since.
I want you to know. I said I want you to know right now.
In the summer of 1964, when Lulu made her debut appearance on ITV's iconic music show Ready, Steady, Go, she was already a seasoned performer.
Are you really only 15?
Yes, I'm only 15.
How long have you been singing?
Since I was 3.
3?
Yes.
I knew she was a star very early on. And every Saturday night there would be a party at our home, you know, and people used to come in to hear the wee lassie. Can I hear her singing, you know? By the time she was about 9, we had people knocking on the doors asking her to come and do concerts for them. And when she hit 10 or 11, people started knocking on the door from rock bands.
In 1967, Lulu performed the theme tune of the US box office smash To Sir With Love, but that wasn't her only contribution to the movie.
My favorite Lulu song, without a doubt, To Sir With Love. It's from the Sidney Poitier movie. Lulu was in the movie as well. I mean, she didn't just sing the main song of the movie, she was in the movie.
Introducing Lulu, one of England's favorite pop singers.
Look at me.
She's fantastic in it. She's a wonderful little actress as well. And that song, again, it hasn't dated. It's so poignant. She breaks your heart when she sings it.
From crayons to perfume.
To Sir With Love would top the US Billboard charts and go on to sell a staggering 4 million copies worldwide.
Here's the cute youngster Lulu and her first great hit. Here is Lulu.
It made Lulu a 60s icon, and she still wasn't even out of her teens.
The song was the #1 in America, which was a huge thing for Lulu to get. And not only that, I think it was the biggest selling single of '67, which when you think about it, it was the summer of Sgt. Pepper's, and the biggest selling thing in the whole of that year in America was To Sir With Love.
In March of 1969, Lulu represented the UK at the Eurovision Song Contest in Madrid. The song was Boom Bang a Bang, and thanks to an unforeseen quirk in the voting system, it was one of 4 joint winners that year.
I know she hates the song. She hated the song, but you know, she won.
Just weeks before performing at the Eurovision, Lulu married Maurice Gibb of the Bee Gees. It would end in divorce 4 years later.
I loved Maurice. I'd known Maurice for years, but I was really upset. I thought they were too young. I couldn't see the marriage working. Not because there was anything wrong with either of them, just that it wasn't the right timing. It was too early, too young. So I cried. When she told me, I cried.
What a life you were having. What a life. I mean, you were married at 19, and people, through the prism of today, be saying, that's very young to be married. But it actually probably wasn't in those days. Many of your school pals would have been married at 19.
Yeah, well, I mean, when I think about it now, when that kid left One Direction, I heard what he said about why he was leaving the band, I understood him totally, because to be very very sort of like famous, and you know, the spotlight's on you, you feel invincible, but there's people screaming for you and everybody wants your attention, and you're very high when you're performing, but then it's very, very lonely. And Morris and I think, were very lonely. And we came, you know, we were child stars, which is kind of like, I don't know, that's such a great thing, really, to be a child star. You know, it's hard to adjust to. And emotionally, we were stunted, you know, so we reached out to each other. And, you know, it was a shame that and I was brought up really, rightly or wrongly, but to believe that marriage was the answer to everything, and that it was all, as soon as you got married, you know, hopefully you'd have a white picket fence. Even though my parents' marriage was not that great, I sort of dreamed that this would kind of fill the hole in my soul, but
going back, though, to your brother, Billy, referring to that wee lassie singing, I mean, go back to Coronation Day. Queen Elizabeth gets her crown, and you were singing.
Oh, yes, that was in Glasgow. Everyone was out in the streets, and there was bunting everywhere, and yeah, the whole of Glasgow was, you know, having a party. And I sang, I think, On a Golden Coach, I think it was called.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From an upstairs window, the crowds below. You were like the Queen yourself, waving down.
Well.
But everyone knew, even at that
really?
everyone knew at that stage how extraordinary a voice you had.
Yeah, I had a big voice. I've always had a big voice. And in Glasgow, they would say things like, oh, she's awful old-fashioned, that lassie, which really meant that I seemed older than I really was, because my voice was very mature for a young girl. But everybody in Glasgow sang, and my father had a great voice, so it wasn't, I didn't think I was special, but I knew I could sing, and I loved it. And you know, my childhood was, it was tough, and I think singing helped me to, it was like, take me out of myself.
Yeah. You have spoken in the past about having post-traumatic stress disorder.
I just discovered that I have, because I've always been anxious. I thought it was just me, but actually it's a condition. You hear about soldiers having it, so it was kind of weird. I said, oh, you've got to be kidding. But now that made me understand why I would be why I am the way I am. I've always been anxious, a worrier, and felt that I had to take care of everybody because that was the role I had as a child.
Yeah.
And I carried it through and I look at, you know, my first marriage, my second marriage, and my past, how I did things. And I can see now why, even some things that I'm not really proud of, that I could have been different, but I would react because of being so anxious. But now I've got to a point now where I have a group of friends and I have family who support me, and I've worked through. I'm living my life in the solution now. Yeah. It's not about my problems, it's about my solution, because I've had so much success, and I've had disappointment, I've had sadness, you know, like everybody. And now I'm living, like I say, not as a worrywart, which I always was.
You always were.
I was a big worrier.
Your mother and your father, obviously, they had their rough moments.
My mother had my mother's half Irish, half Scottish. And my mother came from a family of 5, and she was the middle child, and she was given away. I thought she was adopted, but she was given away, and nobody ever knew why. And nobody ever explained why. In those days, people were secretive. And so that meant when she found out, she didn't know that she wasn't born into the family that she thought she was born into when she was a teenager. Her real sister came to school and told her that your name isn't MacDonald, you're Kennedy Cairns, and I'm your sister, and that's not your family. And that was pretty cruel and pretty tough for her to take. So that had a profound effect on my mother. And so when I came along, I was kind of like my mother's best friend,
You were a mother to your younger siblings.
I was kind of, yeah. Sorry.
It's interesting that you say it had a profound effect on you, so much so that the name you use now
is Kennedy Cairns, it's true.
Is Kennedy Cairns.
Yeah.
And I looked up everything I could about you, and I saw that your name was Kennedy Kearns. And say, well, who did she
You
marry?
didn't know I was half Irish?
Which Kennedy did she marry? And which Kearns? Where does this come from? And now I understand.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, at this point in my life, I kind of, even when I left home at the age of 15, my mother had a little bit of a breakdown. Even though she encouraged me to sing and pushed me a lot, you know. When it actually happened that I left home, I think it was very, very upsetting and difficult for her. And I didn't really get how difficult that was until I was much older and had a son that went to America.
Saying goodbye.
To live with his father, yeah. That was...
And I was thinking, when your mother saw you leave home and you go to London.
Yeah, that was tough for her.
You're 15, you have to wait until you've left school officially, when it's legal to go to London. You've already a record made.
Yeah, that's the point. I went to London, I got an audition, I made the record, and then, you know, it was very exciting, the whole prospect of it. And then it was out, and within 2 weeks it was a huge hit, and I was off.
And you were off. That well, you know, that is your trademark.
Yeah.
I mean, was that there from the very beginning?
I heard, I was 13 and I was singing at the weekends in a band, at a rock and roll band. I heard, they told me the boys were all older than me. They were going to see this guy called Alex Harvey, who had been in Germany for the past 2 years, I think the same time as the Beatles. Come back to Glasgow, and he was doing a gig, and everyone in Glasgow was excited. And I said, can I go? But my father would never have let me. I talked to my mother. She helped me sort of, you know, connive and maneuver. And, you know, she was out. She was like waiting for me while I was in the club with all the older boys who took care of me. But this guy came on, and he was emaciated, pale, white, like that, like a skeleton with dyed black hair, black leather. And he got up and he went, well, you know you make me wanna. I said, you know you make me wanna shout them legs up, shout them arms up. I was like, oh my God. I had never heard anything like it in my life. And I said, what is that song? They told me it was the Isley Brothers. So the next day I went out and bought it, and that was that.
And you learnt it and learnt it.
That was, I listened to it 1,000 times. But he did a long, sort of drawn-out version of it, you know?
You're going to perform the track every single day. That's taken from the new album, Making Life Rhyme. But before we do, I want to go back to remember the song that launched your career.
Her first record is called Shout, and here she is, Lulu.
Lulu's stage name isn't the only four-letter word that defines her. There is another, and that word is well. Shout. We've sung along, we've danced to it at wedding receptions and birthday parties.
We didn't realise that she was only 15.
At that age, she was absolutely fantastic.
And you put that song on, everyone starts dancing.
It's a kind of a call to action. You're on the floor.
When we hear that song, we hear her voice, and it's not even her song. In 1964, when Lulu blasted out that iconic vocal, the Isley Brothers hit was already 5 years old. She wasn't the first to cover it, and she would not be the last. From the Shangri-Las to the Beatles, Bon Jovi, Green Day, just about everyone's had a go. But no one's ever topped Lulu's version. It was once described as the best rock and roll performance by a woman in the history of British pop.
Well, I feel
50 years on, it still is.
Things started slipping when I started seeing you on my own. You were my little secret, but I couldn't keep a secret for long. Well, it's the same old story. You heard it all before. No one's gonna worry till This time last year I was so beat. Check me now, 'cause I'm back on my feet. Every single day's another day without you. Well, I knew I needed help, 'cause my head was like a runaway train. So I pushed the panic button, broke the glass, started pulling a chain. You can't slow down, 'cause you're running out of steam. Walking in your sleep, and you know it's not a dream. Lying to yourself, 'cause your heart's telling you to get clean. Last time, baby, every single day I'm living a lush. Every single day I'm changing so fast. Things are better every single day. Now I know what to do. Do, 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 do. This time last year I was so beat. Check me now, 'cause I'm back on my feet. Every single day's another day without you.
Welcome back to In the Round, coming to you from the Round Room at the Mansion House here in Dublin. My special guest tonight is Lulu. You were thrown into this milieu, this very glamorous milieu. I mean, you knew the Beatles. I mean, you knew Maureen Starkey, Ringo's
She was one of
Mrs.
my best friends.
Cynthia, who passed away recently,
She too,
Cynthia
yeah.
Lennon. And they were your pals.
They were.
You were the goody two-shoes in that whole outfit. I mean, there was no sex and drugs and rock and roll. Well, a bit of rock and roll, perhaps, but none of the other.
Well, I suppose I was, you know, being overly responsible. I always felt I had to do the right thing. I tried to be Miss Perfect. And
who are you being perfect for, do you think?
Who knows? Well, I think it was a case of if you're like I was overly responsible, and I was given a lot of responsibility, and whether it was said or not, I felt I was in charge. So that led me to be, you know, kind of, I took care of everybody. I became the breadwinner. I then had, you know, people on my payroll. So if things didn't go well, like for instance, my first record was a big success. The second one was a flop. That was a worry. The next one I don't think did very well. And then, I mean, it was just, there's the anxious thing, you know. Yeah. I got to take care of everybody and everything, and if I don't, the world will fall apart. I mean, it's ridiculous. But, you know, in my head, that's how it seemed.
The song, To Sir With Love, and the movie, To Sir With Love, did you realize how much of a breakthrough that movie was? I mean, you were a young kid.
Not then.
Not then?
Not then.
But it was a big deal.
I did much later. I mean, I now know that you couldn't make To Sir With Love. You couldn't make a movie in those days where a black man was adored by white people, or the black man was touched by white people. In America, they wouldn't allow that on TV and they wouldn't allow it on film. So even though the film didn't make a big deal, it wasn't a big success in this part of the world, everywhere else in the world, particularly America, it was historical. And so the film broke all box office records of Columbia Pictures, and then the record was on the B-side, because Mickey Moser was my producer, didn't think it could be an A-side. That's when you had vinyl and you had A-sides and B-sides. But the DJs in America turned over, and it went straight to #1, and I got a telegram, because the lead actors, the young actors, went to promote the film, but there was a telegram came through, and I don't even know where that telegram is. I should have kept it. Where is Lulu? America wants to know where Lulu is. We want Lulu, and I had to go to America. And my father never liked British films, never liked British music. They thought they were rubbish. They only liked American movies and American films. And I was the same. So to go to America and have success was like unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
I couldn't walk down the street.
And how did you get on? I mean, you and I can speak in our Celtic version of English, and there's no problem, but the Glaswegian version of English can be a little confusing for Londoners.
For those who are not Glaswegian only, yes.
And for America.
Not for Glaswegians, it's perfectly understandable.
But, I mean, were you understood readily?
No, I wasn't. And I remember when I had a TV series in London, I had a Saturday night, when I was 17, a primetime television series, and the head of the BBC, Bill Cotton, said to my manager, she's got to make up her mind what her accent is. And when she goes thick Scottish, we don't understand her, so can you get her to... And I was very confused. I mean, I was very confused in many ways, but I tried to hold it together. And I think because I'd done To Sir With Love and I'd taken on a Cockney accent, I sort of knew I could do accents, didn't I? And then my manager was terribly, terribly posh. So I sort of was in between, you know, everything. And I tried to speak. It was a weird mixture of an accent.
Eurovision beckoned, and they used to sing each country in their own language in those days.
Yeah.
Now they're all singing in English. There was a process whereby you sang all the songs, isn't that it?
Yeah, what happened too was that Bill Cotton again wanted me to do the whole of the Eurovision entries every week on my TV series. And I said, why? What for? I don't want to do that. Like I did a lot with my career when I was young. I still do it, actually. Why do I have to do that? And he said, well, you know, you'll get huge viewing figures. You'll get like 24 million people watching, or whatever, 18 million, whatever. It was a phenomenal amount of viewers would watch it. And that would be good for you. And my manager said it's good for your career. And I sort of thought, well, so I should do it, and I should do it, and I did it. And
Louis said you hated the song.
The whole orchestra and I would try all these different songs every week. There'd be a new song every week, and we'd go, that one's quite good, I quite like that one. Oh, I don't like that one too. And they'd say, and the band, because musicians they're wicked, their sense of humor. And they all said, right, let's take a bet. What's the worst song? What's going to win? The worst song. What is the worst song? And they took a bet, and everybody wrote on a piece of paper, boom, bang, bang.
The worst song.
The worst out of the lot, you know.
And that's the one that went forward.
That was the one
that joined fourth, or joined first, 4 of them.
As you say, though, they all had different languages. And it was bum, 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 boom, bang, a bang. Even if you didn't speak the language, you could go boom, bang, a bang, boom, bang, a bang. And, you know, I was very happy.
So that was it.
We won.
Boom,
because,
bang,
as you said, 4 winners.
Yeah.
And Boom, Bang, a Bang was the only song that really was in the charts all over Europe.
So there was a song by a couple of young writers, though, in the songs you sang, and that was rejected. Who were they?
That was Elton John and Bernie Taupin.
My goodness.
Their song was, I can't go on living without you, oh no, my love. I can't go on living without you, oh no. And I love that. I wanted that one to be the one, but you know, you have to go with what the public choose, and the public were right because it won, even though it wasn't my favorite song.
You had US domination with To Sir With Love, and you had UK domination, and now you had European domination.
Yeah, that's true.
Were you reflective at all on your success, or was this work ethic from Glasgow pushing you all the way? Mustn't stop, mustn't take a rest, must go, go, go.
Yeah, I wasn't reflective at all because I was on a roll, and I was a teenager. You know, even when it was uncomfortable, even when I was very, you know, I'd cry in my bed at night, missing my parents, I wouldn't go home. I didn't go home because I was on a roll. Yeah. I was driven, and I'm still driven, you know. I used to think ambition was a dirty word when I was young, but now I don't think it's a dirty word. I think it's just how you are, and I'm ambitious. And in fact, I'm still waiting to be discovered, if I'm honest. It's true. I'm crazy. I think.
Well, you said
I don't even know.
You and Morris parted the ways. Was that amicable, or was that...
No, it was not amicable, no.
Even though you kind of both knew it was the end of the road?
It was difficult. We had difficulties.
Yeah.
We had trouble. And Morris is dead. Don't want to...
No. I mean, I'm just thinking of two young people who realized that...
Who were young and, you know, we thought we were invincible, actually. We thought we knew it all, because as my brother said, he told me it was crazy, and he's 18 months younger than me. Barry Gibb said, "You're both nuts. Don't get married." But I suppose also because of the kind of girl I was. I didn't live with a guy. I didn't sleep with a guy. I didn't have sex with a guy. I had to marry him.
I mentioned all the different phases in your career, and the writing phase began prompted by Billy.
Yeah, my brother. Well, you know, to be honest with you, when I was married to Morris, I would be getting a master class maybe every day for the 4 years I was married to him. The Bee Gees, I'd be around all the brothers all the time, and they'd be writing songs. And they are some of the greatest songwriters ever. And I didn't think that I could use that, even though I was taking it in. But my brother, they split up for a while. My brother started writing with Morris. So my brother has always been a songwriter since the age of 16, 17. And because he was influenced by Morris. And then when my second marriage broke up, I was devastated. And I tried to keep it down, you know, keep it under control, not to let anyone know how upset I was. And my brother said, "Well, now what do you want to do?" I said, "Well, I want to make records." He said, "Well, you've got to write songs." And I said, "Oh, I can't." He said, "Yes, you can." And the first song was I Don't Want to Fight, and that was recorded by Tina Turner. And she said, and it was a hit all over the world. She said, "This is the story of my life." And I didn't say it, but I thought to myself, honey, it's the story of my life.
Is it true?
It was amazing how something so upsetting and so, you know, something great came from it, you know.
Is it true that you offered it to somebody else first?
No, I'll tell you how it got to Tina. It was, I wasn't offering it to anybody, but Sade heard it. Sade gave it to Tina. She said, "Tina Turner's doing a film, they're doing a film about her life, and they're looking for a song to finish the film, and a song that she can have a single with, because she hasn't had a hit single in America for, I don't know, 7 years or something, and, you know, they want a good single, and this was a hit for her." I mean, it was amazing. I would say, somebody's looking after me. I've got angels on my shoulders.
One of the things that indicates that you have angels on your shoulders is when you were involved in a car accident. An angel came along.
It sort of felt like, yeah.
Yeah, what happened?
Well, I don't really remember because I was knocked out, but I was told that, you know, I'd severed an artery in my head. I've got a big scar, and I bashed my knee, but somebody saved me, because what I understand now is that if you sever an artery in your head, within minutes you can die, because you'll lose so much blood. But a lot of people sort of wrote to the papers and said that they were the ones who saved me, and the stories were weird, I think.
Yeah.
And then finally somebody came along, and he sounded like the real deal. So he saved my life, and he, you know, got me to an ambulance, you know.
During the 80s, I know you felt as though your career wasn't going quite to plan.
It was not going well at all. There have been many times when my career wasn't going well, and you know, I am driven. You know, my career is a big deal to me, because I love it.
But the thing is, you have constantly and consistently the ability to reinvent yourself, so let's have a look.
What's the clue to every puzzle?
When it comes to musical longevity, Lulu leaves Madonna in the halfpenny place. 20 or even 30 years ago, she could easily have retired at the end of a glorious career. But she didn't, because it was far from over.
Lulu has got one of the most distinctive voices in pop music.
You came with your words of courage and said,
The one thing they always say about Lulu is irrepressible. You can't keep her down. She always did the right things at the right time.
She did a song with David Bowie, The Man Who Sold the World. I mean, that was brilliant, and I loved the whole look.
I laughed and shook his hand.
She does have a lot of records in her resume, and I don't just mean music records. I mean, like, Top of the Pops, Cliff Richard and herself are the only two to, I think, have had hits and to appear on Top of the Pops in all 5 decades of the Top of the Pops programme. She was the first female to play behind the Iron Curtain, which was a huge thing at the time.
Lulu has got one of the great voices ever, I think. And it's very unique to her. You know within the first 2 bars that it's Lulu.
She wrote songs for Tina Turner. She works with Elton John. She did a duets album with Paul McCartney and Sting and everybody. She did Relight My Fire with Take That.
Take That thing was obviously huge. And to get up there at #1, and again, irrepressible.
You gotta have hope in your soul.
She has something that she just... Ta-da!
Put a little love in your heart.
Lulu's been around for as long as she's been around because she is very, very talented and very unique, and she's stood the test of time.
And the one thing to say about Lulu is she always looked great. She never seemed to age.
She's 65 now. She looks about 40. But she's singing better than ever. She's sounding better than ever. And she's looking better than ever. That's Lulu.
Well, that's Lulu, that's Louis as well. He's great.
Yeah,
Your fans,
he's a
Dave
card.
Fanning and Louis
Twiggy,
and Twiggy.
yeah.
The
People
whole
say to me now, are you Twiggy? They can't quite, they say, I know your face, you Twiggy. You wouldn't have said that in the 60s, would you?
the
My fat face and her little skinny...
The collaborations that you did with David Bowie, with Take That, I mean,
Yeah.
was that just good fortune or an unerring eye for the right thing to do?
A little bit of both. You have to have a business head too. You have to have a good business head to survive. And I'm lucky with the people I've been surrounded with. I'm lucky with the people I've worked with, all the people that, you know, Louis, you know, everybody. And you know, it's just, I love to sing. I love to sing. Music is, what was it John Miles said? He wrote a song, said, music is my first love, and it will be my last. It kind of fits, I think.
Well, there are so many chapters in your life, Lulu, and maybe we could talk about some of the later chapters after we take a break. Welcome back to In the Round here in Dublin's Mansion House, and our special guest tonight is Lulu. Did you notice the point when you moved from being, you know, pop singer, R&B singer, and eventually icon? Because you are an icon now, you know, you're...
No.
Yes, you are.
If you thought of yourself that way, you'd be nuts. I mean, you'd be a mad hatter. You know, it's a job. I do a job, and I love my job. I just happen to have to be on television sometimes, if I can get on television, if I can get a plug on the radio with my record. But it's tough, it's not easy. And I've been up and down, I've been around the block, I've been all over the place, but I'm still here and I still love it. And I hope I'll do it until I drop.
Now, you did an album of duets, and it was called Together. You went to New York to record with Joe Cocker.
I did.
And you went at a very auspicious time for America.
I mean, it was the day before 9/11, Joe and I were in the studio, and we finished quite quickly. We recorded the thing quite quickly, and my producer said, well, I'm going to take the late night, I'm going to take the red eye back to London. I said, I'm going to the hotel, I'm going to sleep and get the early morning flight. And of course, when I arrived at the airport, I got on the plane. Paul McCartney was on the same plane as me. Took forever. I thought, was this plane never going to take off? Finally, the captain told us to look out the window, and we had to abandon the plane. And really, I was stuck at the airport. It was really scary, really scary.
And when you saw the pictures on television in the airport?
I saw the Twin Towers from the plane. I saw the Twin Towers, and he told us very briefly, but you didn't really hear what he was saying. It was crazy. Who knew what he was really saying? It's like you wanted to say that again? And yeah, I was there at 9/11, and I didn't get out for a week. I mean, I got out of the airport, but I didn't get out of New York for a week. That was very, very crazy.
Were you scared that day? I mean, did you think this could lead to World War? This could be very...
Who knew? Actually, I was stuck at the airport for a couple of hours, and the airport got more and more and more empty. And then finally, they put us in a cab, and we drove along an empty freeway outside the, Kennedy Airport. It's never empty. And there was like 1 or 2 police cars, and then we got to a hotel. I didn't even know where I was, but I called my very, very good friends, Gail and Jimmy Smith and Gail Federici, and they put their 2 girls in their car, and they came and got me like 4 hours later. And I went to Connecticut and stayed with them. Paul went, I don't know where he went, bloody left me, I don't know where he went, but yeah, it was kind of scary. Everyone was scared, no one knew what they were doing,
So he abandoned you, even after all those years of friendship?
After all we've been through.
But it must be great, back performing, back touring. The appetite, when did it return?
Well, I've never ever not worked. I've worked all my life. In fact, I come from a family of hard workers. I come from Glasgow, and there is a certain work ethic there that I have always had. But this sort of like a reboot, I think, is because I was invited by some incredible American musicians to do a gig in New York at B.B. King's Blues Club. And I went there, and they were hanging from the rafters. The place was, I don't think of myself as a blues singer. I have a rocky voice with a little bit of a blues and R&B feel to my singing. But to do this club, it's kind of well known, and it's just a historic venue. And to get the reaction I got, it was, so I came back to the UK, and I decided I was going to do it with my own band. We did some blues tracks, and then the band all ganged up on me and said, we think you should record, you should make an album. Your voice is great at this stuff, blah, blah, blah. And I was not interested because there are so many great blues singers. I thought, why would anyone buy an album of mine, especially today? I know that the record business, the recording business is for young people. The music business is for young people.
But then you wrote these songs.
They talked me into doing some blues stuff, and I did, and I kind of enjoyed it. We did it the sort of old school, band in the studio, me in the recording booth, and then my brother and I put a couple of new songs, as you just said. And then my manager went to shop a deal, and at Decca, which was my first record company, they signed me at 15. They said, we would like to sign Lulu, because I didn't have a record deal. But we would like her to do some more the new stuff is the ones we like, and not the old blues songs.
But they're new songs, but they're kind of classic songs as well. There's a song called Poison Kiss, which I love.
You do?
There's a song called Cry, which is brilliant. There's a song called The Answer Is Love.
Ah.
All great, great songs. But I was wondering what you think of the X Factor phenomenon. I mean, would Lulu enter the X Factor if she was 17 today, or 14, or 15?
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know.
Would you let your grandchild in to enter that?
I wouldn't like my granddaughter to be in the music business.
No, why not?
No. I think it's tough. I think today also, I think it's tougher than it was even when I was young. I mean, I'm very lucky. I am extremely lucky, and I've always said I'm somebody up there likes me. I have angels on my shoulders. I had a manager from the age of 15 who was a woman who had children, who protected me from everything, I think. But a young girl today, it's tough, and today it's about world domination. I mean, it wasn't like that when I started. I wouldn't want my granddaughter to be in this business, but you know, she loved it and wanted to and was determined. You know, how can
Could you stop her?
And you have to be grateful if a young person knows what they want to do.
Does she have a voice like yours?
She's not. My grandson is pretty hot. He's 2.5. He's pretty hot. I mean, he's insane. But the two of them have their favorite songs on this album, which tickles me so much.
Well, you've been through a lot, but you're obviously embarking on this whole new thing, touring again.
It's incredible. I mean, to be able to write songs now, and I feel because I've lived a life, I am not quite so shut down that I don't want to talk about what I've experienced. I've been, you know, I feel I've got fodder for food, for songs. I've got food for songs, you know, information and experience. And I can still sing, and I love it. And I sing because that's what I do. And I'm lucky, you know.
On that note, if you'll pardon the musical pun, we're going to finish with another song, an iconic song again, but I want to thank you very much for joining us on the show. Well, make sure that you tune in next week when we'll be here in the round with another guest. In the meantime, with an exclusive acoustic performance of the song that she wrote for Tina Turner, I Don't Want to Fight, it is Lulu. From all of us here, good night.
There's a pale moon in the sky, kind you make your wishes on. Like the light in your eyes, one I built my dreams upon. It's not there any longer. Something happened somewhere, and we both know why. Oh, but me, I'm getting strong. We must stop pretending I can't live this life. Oh, I don't care who's wrong or right. I don't really want to fight no more. It's too much talking, babe. Let's sleep on it tonight. I don't really want to fight no more. It's time for letting go. I hear a whisper in my head, simply doesn't bother me, no. No, no, no. Can you see that I don't care? Or are you looking right through me? Seems to me lately, look at me the wrong way, and I start to cry. I'll cry, baby. Could have been a maybe. This crazy situation is the reason why. Oh, I don't care what's wrong or right. I don't really want to fight no more. It's too sleep on it tonight. I don't really wanna fight no more. I'm tired of all these games. Baby, don't you know I don't wanna hurt no more. That's why I'm walking, baby. Don't care now who's to blame. I don't really wanna fight no more. It's time for letting go. Hanging on to the past, it always stands in my way. We had to grow for our love to last, but we just grew apart. I don't wanna hurt no more, my baby. I don't wanna fight no more. It's time.